herbs as well. Although there was one thing that drastically changed for him, and that was blood. It had a greater taste than anything he had before, and was as sweet as caramel itself. Just thinking about it, Quinn wanted another taste, but he was still able to control himself just fine. It was the same way when someone thought about chocolate. They suddenly wanted chocolate, but they didn't need it. Before touching any of the other items, Quinn made sure to use his inspect skill on each one. First was the metal cross. "A religious symbol that has no effect," the system said. Then the chain. "A silver chain that is made up of 92% silver. Wearing the item can be used as a fashion accessory." With both the items, there was no such warning. Quinn then proceeded to pick up both of them with no worry. He was starting to trust the system more and more lately, as it had been more helpful and accurate. "So what's the story behind these two things?" Quinn asked. "I kind of get the cross, but what about the silver? And they're just for werewolves?" Suddenly, Layla's eyes started to sparkle up. "I'm glad you asked. Vampire lore has gone further back than you think. Even in Greek mythology, they have tales of vampires. The first vampire was said to be cursed by the god Apollo, to be burnt by sunlight. Then, when the man tried to touch Artemis' bow, she cursed the human further to be affected by silver," Layla explained. "Of course, there are other reasons, but this is one of the older ones. Then, with the cross, vampires have always been seen as workers of the devil, a creature that needed to suck blood to live, and of course God, in the eyes of many, is a fighter of evil, and the cross is a symbol of the god." Layla then grabbed both items from Quinn and placed them back in her bag. "But now, looking at you, I can clearly see all of that was a load of rubbish," Layla said, sounding a bit disappointed by the whole experience. "The only vampire weakness it seems you have so far is sunlight, although I have to admit that's a pretty big one. Do you feel like you're not getting older yet?" "What?" Quinn said, confused. "How would I even know? It's only been a few days. I mean, I don't feel any older, but I could say that about the rest of my life. You kind of just got older without realizing it." Then a dreaded thought had entered Quinn's mind. If it was true that he would no longer age, did that mean his appearance would stay the same as it did now? Would he look like a young teenage boy for the rest of his life? With the test over, it was time for the two of them to head back to their dorm rooms. Quinn decided to head back to the dorm rooms and see if Vorden and Peter wanted to hang out and do something for the rest of the evening. But when he entered the room, once again neither Vorden or Peter was there. Vorden, Quinn didn't worry too much about it. It seemed like he had been getting into trouble lately with the second years, but currently they were staying well clear of him after the incident. It was Peter Quinn was more worried about. He couldn't help but shake the feeling that these new friends of Peter weren't actually friends of his, and was wondering what to do. With that, Quinn decided to sleep for the night and wait till the next day. When he woke up, he was happy to see that the other two had managed to return to their rooms in the middle of the night. For once, the three of them had decided to head down to the canteen together, and after a long time, the three of them casually ate food and chatted about what they had done yesterday. Once the three of them had finished eating, it was time for them to head to their homeroom classes together. On Monday morning, they were to attend a morning class with their teacher, Dell. This lesson would be a theory-based lesson, either the history of the human race, or even notice about what would happen. The three of them sat in the back of the class as usual, while Layla sat at the front, with Aaron by her side. The students waited patiently until Dell had finally arrived. "All right, class, I have an important announcement to make. The preparations for your first portal outing have been completed. It's time for you kids to go explore the universe a bit more." Episode 59. Portal Colors. Before Dell was to inform the students about the portal training they would be participating in, he needed to explain to the students how the portals worked. After all, it would be a first for nearly every student there, apart from a few of them. Portals allowed humans to travel to and back from locations that they had been to before. They were often used to travel to other planets. The technology was obtained when humanity managed to take down their first Dalki ship and discovered a portal inside. Usually when such advanced technology was discovered, people wouldn't be able to dissect and replicate it so easily. Just because you had the technology didn't mean you understood how it worked. But thanks to the legendary scientist named Richard Eno, he had easily been able to dissect all of the equipment found on board of the ship. Another great contributor to the war against the Dalki, some people assumed that he had an ability of some sort that helped him along the way, but these were just rumors and no one knew for sure. However, one thing for certain was he was a great man. Once he had found this technology, he distributed it not only to the military, but also to private companies as well. He made sure that such power wouldn't just end up in one group's hands. Back then, the world and humans were fighting together, but who knew what would happen once the war had ended? In today's world, there were generally 3 different groups of people who had and owned portals. The military was the first group. Next were private corporations. They usually had powerful originals backing them. Many of these companies would also form a faction, a group of powerful travelers, just for exploring other planets. And lastly was the group known as Pure, a group that didn't believe in the use of abilities. There were 3 types of portals, each different in color. There was green, orange, and red. Each of these portals meant a different thing. Green meant that the planet it led to had already been explored, and there were human shelters that had been built. These allowed people to live there if they wished, or just stay there temporarily. The next was orange. This meant that the planet hadn't been fully explored yet. There were some shelters in place, but the level of the beast could be too high in certain areas, or they just hadn't explored everywhere yet. And finally, the red portals. These were unexplored planets. There were no shelters for regular humans to live in. Only travelers or military personnel would usually go into these portals for exploration, and the worst thing about them was they didn't know if the Dalki were on the planet as well. After all, the Dalki had the same technology, so it wouldn't be too strange to run into them, and although under a treaty, if a few people were to go missing on an unknown planet, it was hard to prove something had happened, and the humans weren't ready for another war just yet. "And that is all the information you need to know about portals," Del said. A student then raised his hand while seated in the center of the class. "Yes," Del said. "What about the beasts that were discovered on those planets? Will we learn about them?" the student asked. "For now, that's all you need to know about the portals. Yes, this also led us to discover beasts on these planets, and they are what we use to create our beast weapons. But you will be told more detail about that when you arrive," Del explained. "Although I will tell you now that you can also thank Richard Eno for that discovery as well." Del then closed the presentation that was playing behind him. "Now for the important part. The portal expedition will take place next week, but before even that, you will be required to form your own team of 5. Although on this trip you will travel as a class, you must have a squad and stick together. Even the green portals are a dangerous place filled with beasts, and the trackers on your watch will not work outside the academy. We will have no way to come and save you." The same student once again raised his hand, and Del had a look on his face like it was starting to get annoying. "Yes. Do you know where we will be going?" "That information will be revealed to you on the day. Many of you here have family members who, if they knew where you were, would send guards out to protect you on these planets, but that wouldn't be fair, especially since we will also be assessing you on this." The student once again raised his hand, but Del this time stared at him back, forcing him slowly to put his hand down again. "Now, if there aren't any more questions, your combat classes for today are cancelled. Today you are to form a team of 5 and report back to us by the end of the day." Del then left the room to attend to other business, while allowing the students to form their own group of 5s. Vorden then turned his head immediately. "Hey, Quinn, you want to be on the—" But standing by Quinn's side already was Layla, who had sprinted from the front of the class to the back. "Hey, do you want to make a team with me, Quinn?" Layla said, smiling. Sure," Quinn answered. Truthfully, Quinn wanted to ask Layla to be on the same team. They didn't know how long their first assessment was going to take, and if he was to get hurt or injured, he was going to need a blood source of some type. Even if Vorden didn't like it, he knew this was going to happen. "Hey, Quinn, do you mind if I join as well?" he said, smiling, trying to hide his annoyance. "Of course, and Peter as well." Peter's face was a little shocked at hearing the sound of his name, and at the same time his feelings were confused. "Yeah, that would be good," Peter said. Then, when the others were just thinking about who the 5th member should be, Aaron had approached Vorden, of all people in the room. "I want to make a team with you." Episode 60. The Team. Not only were Quinn and the others shocked that Aaron had approached Vorden, but so was the whole class. In Del's class, Aaron was the strongest student there. Nearly everyone wanted her on their team, but over the last few days, when people had tried to approach her, she had always given a cold response. It seemed like she was disinterested in everything apart from getting stronger. "I'm sorry," Vorden said, "but I've already decided to make a team with these guys." Vorden's response to Aaron seemed to be even crazier to everyone else as well. They had seen Vorden fight that day when they were surrounded by the second years. After witnessing that, no one would say he was any weaker than Aaron. If the two of them were to combine powers and found a few other strong people, it meant that they could easily come up with the strongest team in the class. Aaron then looked at the group of people who Vorden pointed at. To be honest, she didn't seem to recognize any of them. "Who are they?" Aaron said. "What? We took the test together. I even helped you out at the assembly hall," Layla complained. The truth was, Aaron never took the time to remember people's faces. She only cared about those who were strong. When she saw how weak they were in the test assessment, she didn't even bother with them any longer. Although there was one person who had caught her eye other than Vorden, and that was Quinn. She remembered him throwing the black beast balls at a lightning-fast speed and taking out a student. Then, when she looked at his wrist, she saw he was only a level 1 user. "Why would you stay with these weak people? Surely you can get a better grade if you join me and a few others," Aaron said. The first assessment and future assessments in the portal outing would determine their final grade. For those who had a cozy family to get back to, it didn't matter too much, but to the rest, it determined their future. The grade they got when they left the military academy would decide whether they could join a strong private company, or whether they would just end up joining the bottom of the barrel, being treated even worse than now. "I don't care about the grades, I just want to have fun while I'm still in school," Vorden replied. But Aaron was determined not to give up. "Fine, I can accept the girl and the strangely strong boy, but I can't accept him," Aaron said, pointing at Peter. Peter's heart suddenly started to thump louder. A fear started to take over him as he heard Aaron speak these words. If he didn't get in Vorden's and Peter's team, he would be in huge trouble. "Why do we need you anyway?" Vorden said. "Wait a minute," Layla interrupted. "I think she would make a good addition to the team. Besides, Vorden, doesn't your ability rely on those around you to be strong as well? As far as I remember, the beast doesn't have abilities, so you would have to rely on us, and we don't exactly have strong abilities." "Layla, I understand what you're saying, but for once I agree with Vorden," Quinn replied. "I don't care how strong she is. She can't just come in and kick one of us out. She can join the team, but only if Peter stays." It was good to have strong allies, but at what cost? If Quinn was to kick out Peter to replace him with a stranger, he would just be as bad as everyone else who had treated him like crap just for being weak. He didn't want to change into one of those types of people. Aaron then started to look around the room before looking at Vorden once again. She thought back to how Vorden was able to deal with Momo quite well before the use of the soul weapon. After looking around the room, there didn't seem to be a single person in Dell's class that matched up to him. "Fine, I will join, but I wish for the 5 of us to have a retesting to see where we stand," Aaron asked. "Perhaps we can go visit the training center, display what we can do to the rest." Layla and Quinn looked at each other with a half-worried look in their eye. The 5 of them then headed down to the training center. It was the same place that Layla had first spotted Quinn, who had sneaked in the place at night. Right now, the room was filled with multiple different people from all sorts of different classes. All the other classes had also been informed about the upcoming test and had decided to find out what each other's abilities were. This would give them the best chance of defeating and capturing as many beasts as possible and increasing their chances of survival. "Well, what do you want us to do?" Vorden asked. "I've already seen your powers, but I can't remember too much about the girl and the other 2. Perhaps the girl can go first on the strength machine." Layla went up as asked and went to the large circular strength machine. She concentrated her mind and threw out her fist at the same time. She used the force of her telekinesis to push her hand as strong as she could. The numbers slowly went up on the machine's display until it had eventually reached number 8. "Damn it, same as last time. Looks like I haven't improved much," Layla complained. "For a level 2, that's a quite weak strength score, but judging by the bow, you're a ranged user anyway. It will be quite handy to have someone like you on the team," Aaron said. She then walked up to the 2 boys, Quinn and Peter. "Well, I'm hoping that both of you can at least get the same score as her." Quinn was starting to get annoyed by all her taunts, but he took a deep breath and held it in. With her on the team, it would cause fewer troubles with the others. Even if they did defeat beasts and obtain their crystals, there was a high chance that another team might target them and try to steal them. But just having Aaron on the team would stop that. Peter walked up to the machine holding the mud staff in his hand. "Looks like he's still level 1 then," Aaron said. Level 1 Earth users didn't have the ability to extract Earth from the ground. All they could do was reform the Earth in their hand. They could only control the Earth they were touching rather than the Earth around them. As Peter went to punch the machine, the earth around from the pole started to form around his fist. As he hit the machine, the numbers started to go up, and finally it stopped at 8, the same score as Layla. "Well, what are you waiting for?" Aaron said, looking at Quinn. Episode 61. Grinding. As Quinn walked up to the strength machine, all he wanted to do was punch the machine as hard as he could. He wanted to shut up the arrogant Erin, who felt like she was better than everyone else. Why did she choose to act like this? Simply because she had a better ability than others? Because her family was well off enough to buy her a strong ability book? But Quinn couldn't reveal himself here, especially in front of the others. They all had seen him on the test day, and they all knew Quinn still didn't have an ability apart from Layla. He looked at the machine and started to wonder if he performed a hammer strike using all his strength, would the number rise up? Surely the number would be above his 16 strength. He readied his fist and redid his footwork. The gauntlets were equipped on his hands, and Quinn let his fist out. He tried controlling the power output, hoping to achieve a similar score to the other two. Bang! His fist collided with the large drum-like machine, and the numbers slowly started to rise. 8, 9, and then finally the number had stopped at 10. Quinn estimated if his current strength with the gloves was 16 when he needed to use half his strength when hitting the machine to get an 8. But such macro-level control was nearly impossible to get right, and he had managed to go slightly over. "Hey man, didn't you get stronger?" Vorden said, surprised. "I thought you got a 5 on the test last time. You've been working out or something?" Quinn started to laugh, trying to come up with something. "Actually, it was thanks to that game you showed me," Quinn replied. "I met someone who really helped and showed me how to activate the beast weapon strength properly. I worked hard hoping I wouldn't be useless for you guys. When I threw that beast ball that time back in the assembly hall, I realized how useful it would be if I learned how to activate the best weapon." This was a lie, but Quinn felt like it was quite convincing. "Didn't the second year say you needed to treat it like activating your ability, though? I thought you didn't have one." "Apparently that isn't a requirement, but just to help you visualize activating your beast weapons," Quinn replied back. Sweat was starting to run down his face. All he could do now was hope the others would buy it. "Well, a score of 10 isn't that impressive. The only reason we are talking about it is because you're level 1, Aaron said. For once, Quinn was happy Aaron's smugness had drawn the attention away from him. "Is this okay, then?" Layla asked. "Yes," Aaron replied. "I still wish to join your team. I believe even with the extra luggage we have on board, with me and Vorden, we can come out as the top team during this assessment." After testing everyone's strength, the group decided to discuss a few things, such as formation and what to do. Although the discussions didn't last for long, if they were to travel as a group, Layla would stay at the back for support, and Aaron and Vorden would be at the front. Usually the physical damage dealers would be at the front of the squad, while elemental users in the middle. But in this scenario, Quinn and Peter were considered so weak that they were placed in the center for protection. Aaron felt like it was quite useless to practice anything else after finding out how weak the other two abilities were, so the group's meeting had ended early, and she decided to go off on her own to train somewhere. "Well, if combat classes have been cancelled for the day, is there anything you wanted to do?" Vorden asked. "Actually, I was planning to head to the VR capsules," Quinn replied. "I've been trying out a bunch of abilities so I can decide what ability to pick in the future." Suddenly, Vorden started to shiver. "You can go ahead," Vorden said. "I know I showed you how to play the other day, but to be honest, I'm sick and tired of that game. I played it so much growing up and all." With Quinn heading off to the VR room, that left Peter and Vorden all on their own. "Hey, so do you want to practice a bit more with your ability? I know you're saving up so you can buy a few more skill books. Maybe we can get you to a level 2 before heading off into the portal." Peter looked around the room at the other students before giving an answer. "Sure, that sounds like a good idea," Peter replied. But Peter's strange actions didn't go unnoticed, and Vorden had a feeling it had something to do with those students he went to hang around with a few days ago. Quinn had finally arrived at the VR center. He paid his 10 credits for an hour and got into his pod as usual. At the moment, it was the easiest way for Quinn to level up and get stronger. He decided while inside the capsule he would split his session into 2 halves. For the first 30 minutes, he would spend it facing against level 1s. On average, it took him around 5 minutes to defeat an opponent in the level 1 stage. Gaining 25 experience points for each opponent he defeated, would allow him to gain around 150 experience points. Then, for the second half of the session, he would use it searching for quick matches, battling against opponents of all different strengths. This would improve his fighting IQ out in the world. Quinn entered the game and started his first match with his plan. He did the usual, avoiding the enemy's strikes and dealing with his opponent with either the strength of his two fists or by using a barrage of blood swipes. That's when Nate noticed that the ID Blood Evolver was online. Nate was still interested in this person and decided to check him out. As long as they were in your friends list, you were able to spectate their matches. Nate then was suddenly transported into the arena and began to watch Quinn's matches one by one. And all that he witnessed was Quinn defeating weak level 1s in a matter of minutes. But it was strange, for someone as strong as him, just what on earth was he doing? When Nate thought of him, he never imagined Quinn to be the type of person to bully the weak. "Let the grinding begin," Quinn said as he took down his next opponent. 170 of 800 EXP. Episode 62. A Hacker. Nate continued to observe Quinn and his fighting style, and wondered just why he didn't fight the same as when he fought against him. Quinn repeatedly went into match after match and would only go up against level 1s. It was clear to Nate that he had purposely set the system up this way. Now some players would do this if they perhaps were trying out something new, but from watching Quinn, all he could see was Quinn doing the same thing over and over. He would enter into a game, and then immediately dash in, either using a barrage of the red line attacks of his, or a flurry of punches, not caring whether he got hurt or not. It was clear he was beating them with pure strength and trying to win the matches as quickly as possible. Unknown to Nate, though, Quinn was purposely doing this. He didn't have much time left between now and when he was to go out onto his portal training, so the only thing Quinn could do was grind a few levels to get stronger using the system. Finally, 30 minutes had passed, and Quinn himself was growing tired of repeating the same thing over and over again. The only thing that kept him going was seeing his experience go up little by little. That's when Quinn noticed that he had a spectator. Nate, who was sitting in the seats, gave a wave back. "Oh, it's him. I wonder what he's doing here." Then a thought came to Quinn's mind. The fact that Nate was watching gave him the chance to ask him something. He then went on to the game system and sent out a part invite to Nate. At first, Nate was just planning to spectate and watch Quinn play a few games. He wanted to study Quinn a bit more before asking him to another duel, but when he saw the party invite, he was quite surprised. The game only allowed for one-on-one battles, so the party invite feature was only really used between teammates for practicing, or if they wanted to chat and were far away. In the end, Nate was too curious and wanted to know what Quinn wanted, and decided to accept. The arena ground disappeared, and now Nate and Quinn were in a single white room once again. "Hey, how are you doing? I hope you're not planning some type of revenge, are you?" Nate said as he proceeded cautiously towards Quinn. "No, actually, I wanted to ask you something. The person who I fought with before, your friend, I wanted to know more about his cape and where he had received it from." "Oh, Sam's cape. That's why you wanted to talk to me." Nate then looked at Quinn standing in front of him. In his hands he wore his gauntlets. That's when Nate suddenly realized something. The gauntlets that Quinn was using looked horrible. They must have been only at the basic tier. "Wait a minute, are you a first year?" Nate said. Yeah. I will be going on my first portal outing. I thought if you could tell me what type of beast you got it from, I would be able to look for it." Nate was suddenly a little surprised. He went back and thought about how Quinn was able to damage his solid body, even though no one had done such a feat before. He was sure the person would have been at least a second year. "Let me give you a piece of advice then. On your first outing, they always use the green portals. You have the chance of going to one of three places: Kaladi, Almpen, and Bartney. Out of these three planets, you want to go to Kaladi. There in the desert, there's a winged creature. I can't remember the name of the winged creature, but there aren't many in the desert, so I'm sure if you see one, that will be it. That beast core is what we made the cape out of." "Wait, did you say a desert?" Quinn asked. "Yeah, what's wrong with that?" Usually the word desert meant the place came with heat. The idea of having to journey through that, Quinn was starting to get tired just thinking about it. "Don't worry. Thank you so much for the information. You've been a big help. I'm going to play a few more games now before my time is up. "Oh, sure, go ahead. Do you mind if I watch?" Nate asked. Quinn thought about it for a while. If he didn't want to let Nate watch, all he had to do was block him or delete him from his friends list. But at the same time, Quinn felt like there was no problem. He was just fighting people. It wasn't like he was doing anything that suggested he was a vampire, and it was likely that Nate wasn't even from the same school as him. "Sure, go ahead." Quinn only had 20 minutes left inside the machine, and using his remaining time, Quinn chose to use the quick match function on the game, matching him with random power levels who chose the same option. This half of his session would be used to practice his fighting skills. In the remaining 20 minutes, Quinn was able to have 2 more games. His first match, he was against a level 4 user who had a transformation ability. His body was made of a rubber-like material, and he was able to stretch it as far as he liked. Quinn struggled against this opponent. The fighting style of the Rubber Man was strange, and when Quinn wasn't expecting it, he would be hit at an incredible speed. In the end, Quinn managed to get a few blood swipes in and hurt the man, but still ended up losing. The next match there was much more success, as he was matched up against a level 2 user who had a hardening skill similar to Nate, only weaker. He had an easier time dealing with this opponent, as his blood swipe dealt damage as well as his regular attacks. In the end, though, Quinn decided to take the match just as seriously as the others, and ended up finishing it with a hammer strike. 195 of 800. With that, Quinn's time in the game was up, and he had to leave. Nate, after watching Quinn for the whole time, had a strange thought lingering on his mind. Just what was Quinn's ability? After their battle, Nate had decided to check out the ability list to see if there was anything similar, and he could find no such thing. The other thing was, it seemed like all Quinn could do was shoot out red lines, which would suggest either the ability he had at the moment was incredibly weak, or he was currently at a low level. What Quinn didn't realize, though, was that all the opponents he had faced that day were thinking the same thing as Nate. They were wondering just what ability Quinn had. The hardening user Quinn had just fought was as so frustrated with his loss, he decided to go onto the online forums and make a post. He shared a video of the match between himself and Quinn titled, "What ability is this? Is he a hacker?" Episode 63, Peter Calls for Help. The online forum had started to gain some traction with users who had fought against Quinn. They started to post comments just below about the video. "Yeah, I fought against him too, and he used those red lines on me. I lost in an instant. Is there really an ability like that in the game? It looks like Wind Slash, but why are the lines red?" Of course, even though the post had gained some traction, there weren't many. After all, things like this were posted on a daily occurrence, and usually it was from some people who couldn't accept a loss, thinking the other person must be hacking. But those who did watch the video started to ping the creators asking if what was seen in the video was real. Of course, one of the admin staff for the game came along and checked the video, but this person wasn't any ordinary admin staff. It was a student at the school named Logan Green. Logan himself wasn't ordinary, for he was the son of the creator of the game, and not only that, but was one of the head coders as well. He often visited the forum to check for bugs, and if there were any, he would try to fix them while still attending school. Then suddenly, late at night that day, he noticed that post had started to gain traction. Usually he wouldn't have bothered with these things, but the staff were getting tagged in the post more than usual. After watching the video, suddenly his attention had been caught. Logan immediately could tell that the video was real. He searched up the 2 user IDs that were in the game and then decided to look at the match information. After searching them up, he noticed that the player that was being questioned in the video had selected no ability. No, it couldn't be. Did he really manage to hack the system? Logan then began to dig in deep into the match and checked everything about it. He checked the log of the game and everything that had been written down as the match went on, but there wasn't a single thing he could find that was wrong. Logan actually felt relieved. The game so far had been successful, not only because of how it was able to accurately replicate abilities, but also because the game had yet to be hacked. After finding out this information, Logan had no choice but to think it had something to do with his ability. Although Original's abilities weren't able to be copied into the game, this was the only answer he could think of. But one question remained, and that was just who was the user behind ID Blood Evolver. It was company policy to not keep records of any of the users in the game. The data was scrambled so not even he could get access to it. But that wouldn't stop Logan. The next day, combat classes had resumed back to normal. Layla the other day had gone to register the team with Dell, and even he was surprised at who was written on the list. The group became the talk of the class. After all, they were the only ones with such a huge difference in power levels between the team, something that hadn't happened in the school before. In the combat class, the group were told to continue training independently, and if they wished to spar with a partner, they could politely ask. Leo would go around giving tips to the students when he could. In the afternoon, after classes were done, Quinn would head to the VR room to continue his daily routine. He continued facing low-level ones and used the second half to train. 275 of 800. But the more people Quinn played against, the more traction the original forum post was getting, and all of this was unknown to Quinn. He didn't even know there was an online forum for the game. Quinn had never had any of these things in the past. He had access to the TV and internet, but didn't really know much about games. It was only thanks to Vorden showing him everything he knew what to do. Another day had passed, and Quinn repeated the process. 440 of 800. Not only was Quinn quickly gaining EXP, but he also felt like he was getting a hang of his abilities more. He knew when the time was right to use Flash Step, and also learned how to combine his two skills, so he would be able to disappear and reappear while using Hammer Strike. In 2 days, Quinn felt like he would be ready. Inside the second year's office, a group of first years had been called into the General Duke's office. Standing at the front of the first years was Earl, the same boy who had recently been hanging around with Peter, as well as the one who had broken his fingers. "I've made sure that the room will be empty for you tomorrow. Make sure you do as I asked. I need you to get rid of them," Duke said. "Yes, sir, we promise." "Good," Duke replied as he threw over a couple of beast crystals as well as a skill book. "You should be able to progress to level 4 with that skill. Carry on working hard and there will be more." The next day after combat classes had ended, Peter had messaged for Vorden and Quinn to come to the training room on the east side. This room was usually off-limits to students, since it was also used as a room to store portals. But after reading the contents of the message, both Quinn and Vorden had rushed over. The message simply said that Peter needed their help. While heading over to the room, Vorden and Quinn had bumped into each other. "Did you get Peter's message?" Quinn asked. "Yeah, that's why I'm here. I knew those friends of his were bad news," Vorden said. "Quinn, you stay behind. I can deal with this myself." "No way. He's my friend, too. I'm going to kick those guys' asses if it's the last thing I do." Vorden could see he was unable to convince Quinn, so the two of them continued together and had finally arrived inside the training center. The room was large, and there were several large metallic objects with an oval shape in the middle. Each one of them had a glowing circle in the middle, shining with a different color. These were the portals that took them to another world. There were 9 machines out in total, 3 of each color, and for a moment, it felt like they were unable to take their eyes off the things. When they had entered the room, they could see that Peter was lying on the ground, badly hurt. He laid on the ground just in front of one of the teleporters, and it looked like he couldn't move. Quinn and Vorden looked around the room, but were unable to notice anyone. They both then rushed over to his side. He had bruise marks all over him, and he scuffed up pretty bad with scratches all over. "What happened to you? Was it those first-year students?" Vorden shouted. "Yeah, they got me pretty bad. They went out for just a moment. I don't think they're going to come back." "All right, let us pick you up," Vorden said, as he lifted Peter's hand over his shoulder. As the two of them picked up Peter, Quinn had a strange feeling. As he looked at Peter closer, he noticed that even though his clothes were badly torn, he didn't look to be in such bad a shape that he shouldn't have been able to walk. Even the bruises didn't look normal, almost as if they were drawn on. "Inspect. Peter Chuck, HP 8 of 8. Vorden, let go of him. It's a trap," Quinn shouted. But before Vorden could even realize what was happening, Peter had broken free and immediately pushed Quinn as hard as he could. The push wasn't strong, and it didn't hurt Quinn, but it didn't need to be, because that wasn't Peter's aim. That one little push had managed to push Quinn just far enough back to the point where he had entered the portal. "What have you done?" Vorden shouted. The color of the portal was red. Episode 64, Fight Back. The night before the incident, while Quinn was sound asleep waiting for the other two to return, Peter had been called out by the group of first years. They had added him as a friend on his communicator watch and was able to send a message whenever they wanted to call him. That night, they had asked to meet outside of the dorm room building. 5 of the first years were standing outside, including Earl. "So I see it looks like your friends seem to still trust you, and you managed to get on their team then?" Earl said as he lifted his hand to look at his watch. "Oh, didn't I say to meet here at 8:30? It looks like you're a couple of minutes late." 2 of the first-year students then rushed over and grabbed Peter. One of them held his hand behind his back, while the other held out his right hand. 2 minutes late means 2 fingers, I'm afraid." Earl then held one of Peter's fingers. "Wait, I'm sorry, I needed to be careful. I had to make sure Vorden wasn't following me as you asked," Peter cried. Fine, I'll be generous," Earl said as he pushed down and snapped Peter's finger. Before Peter could even cry out in anger, he bit his tongue for fear that they might do something much worse if someone had heard him. The others watching flinched at the sight. Although they were helping Earl, even they feared him a little. It wasn't normal for someone to be able to hurt or break someone's bones so easily like that, but Earl was able to repeatedly do it easily as if it was nothing. "We will only do 1 finger then, but you know what will happen if you're late again," Earl said as one of the first years came over and started to heal Peter's finger. As the student healed Peter's finger, he could feel Peter's body shaking. His eyes half dead, the boy wanted to say he was sorry, but knew that was how the world currently was. All he had was a healing ability. He had no combat powers and had no choice but to follow those stronger than him. Otherwise, it would be him instead of Peter in this situation. "I called you out here because the general wants to have a meeting with you," Earl explained. The group of first-year students, including Peter, then started to escort him around the school. That's when Peter noticed that they had left the first-year campus building and had gone into the second-year buildings. Instead of going through the front entrance, though, they entered through the back and took the emergency exit stairs. The walk was long, but they had finally reached one of the private integration rooms for second-year students. Earl knocked on the door before entering, and only entered once he heard a voice. "Come in," the man said. As they entered the room, there was a table and 2 chairs opposite each other. Sitting in one of the seats was the General Duke, who was in charge of the second year. "You guys wait outside. I would like to talk with Peter on his own," Duke said. The first years left the room and waited patiently just outside the door. "Relax, take a seat, no need to be afraid." Peter did as Duke asked and sat in the seat, but couldn't help but wonder why the general had asked to meet him. The general was one of the highest-ranking members in the whole city. There was only one person higher than him, and that was the head general. "It seems those people have gone too far with you." Duke then placed his large hands on the table and looked Peter dead in the eye. "Peter, would you like to have the power to fight back?" Suddenly, Peter's dead eyes went slightly into life again as he heard those words. "I looked at your file. You had no ability before coming here, and when you entered school, we gave you the Earth ability. Right now, you're only a level 1, but I can change that for you." Duke then pulled out several Earth skill books and threw them out on the table. "I know you've been saving up trying to get your hands on these. With this, you can finally get out of the level 1 power range, and with that, your troubles would go away. You would be able to graduate from school with a good grade, join a company to go hunting, and earn a good wage for the rest of your life. Sounds nice, doesn't it?" Duke said with a huge smile on his face. Peter couldn't keep his eyes off the skill books in front of him. These skill books were ones that only the military had a hold of. Now that Peter had the Earth ability, the only way he could improve his power was through these skill books. Then finally, he would no longer have to live his life in fear. "Of course, these things don't come for free. The world doesn't work like that. Those men out there work for me. They do what I say, and in return, I offer them protection within the school and outside of the school. Not only that, but they get rewarded for doing well," he said as he held up one of the skill books. "You're going on your first portal outing sometime soon, aren't you? Let me tell you, accidents happen all the time, and every year a student dies on another planet. Now, information has it that maybe this year, someone from that team of yours will go missing. You're a smart boy, so I think you can understand what I'm saying. Now, maybe that person will be you, maybe not. So, what's your answer going to be?" Last night it was clear to Peter what Duke was saying. Either he did what Duke said, or he was the one who would go missing. But the target was never meant to be Quinn. The target was always Vorden. When Quinn shouted and had somehow found out Peter was in on the plan, he panicked. He didn't know what to do and had pushed Quinn into the portal. His hands were now shaking as the realization had hit him. "What the hell have you done?" Vorden shouted. "I'm sorry," Peter said. "You don't understand. I had to do it." "What? Let me guess. Because you were being bullied? Because you were being threatened?" Vorden shouted as he continued to walk towards Peter, and at the same time, Peter would walk back. "Do you not think Quinn has been going through the same thing as you? He's a level 1 just like you. And do you think they didn't try threatening me when I was tied up and placed on that thing? So what if they hit you? They punch you and make you bleed. You can fight back. As long as you are alive, you can always fight back." Vorden then pointed towards the red portal. "But what have you done? You have basically sent Quinn to death. No matter what, there is no coming back from death. He can't fight back now. Did you even try to fight back?" Peter then fell to his knees as his mind was in a mess. Did Vorden and Quinn truly know what it was like to live his life? All Peter wanted was a normal school life, to go through it without any troubles. And someone was offering that to him. Maybe he took the easy way out, but he didn't feel that way. He had already gone through his own suffering before entering the academy, and even worse now that he was in the academy. Why did he have to be the one targeted by Earl and the others? But there was one thing that Vorden said that did strike a chord with Peter. Did he ever try fighting back? He always thought it was useless. The outcome had already been decided, so why get hurt even more? Perhaps that's what made Duke and the others think he was an easy target in the first place. Then suddenly, Vorden started grabbing his head. He started moving all over the place, swinging his head like crazy. "I can't hold him back anymore, Vorden." "You have to try. If he takes over, who knows when I'll get control again." "The shock is too much for him. Looking at Peter is only making his emotions stronger." As Vorden looked up, Peter could see his eyes filled with tears, sadness. Then Vorden looked towards the portal. "No! What are you thinking?" Peter shouted. Vorden then turned around and looked at Peter. "Peter, this is for your own sake, but you better hope I don't come back out of here alive." Vorden then ran straight into the red portal, his body vanishing from the room. Episode 65. Teleporting. When teleportation devices were first discovered, there was hope that they would be able to set these to travel to wherever they wanted to. At last, the idea of colonizing planets such as Mars was a dream come true. Spacecraft had been invented but were unable to travel at light speeds needed to make it viable. However, they were able to create large portals that allowed ships to travel through. But the dream was short-lived. The portals were only able to pinpoint planets at a set location, a place that was not known to their universe, perhaps a whole different dimension altogether. No one knew the truth, and scientists could only theorize where exactly these portals led to, but what they did find was each of these planets harbored deadly beasts, beasts that had never been seen before. Then, when the first beast was killed and harvested for research, the beast crystal located inside it was discovered. Inside the crystal contained a power far greater than anyone could imagine. Although many would say the success of defending against the Dalki was due to the discovery of the originals, this wasn't exactly true. Their abilities only took them so far in the war. There weren't many with powerful abilities strong enough to go against the Dalki. Their technology was too advanced compared to humans. Nuclear weapons would be portaled out somewhere before they even hit the ships, and bullets did no harm to Dalki skin. But then, a new discovery was made with the Beast Crystal, thanks to Richard Eno once again, and that was the discovery of beast weapons. Humans combining their abilities with powerful beast weapons was the true turning point in the war, but not many people remember this fact, as they were too fascinated with the discovery of abilities that happened nearly at the same time. As Vorend jumped into the red portal, he felt a tingling sensation all over his body. The world around him started to warp and displace, and his mind felt like it was melting. It wasn't a horrible feeling. In fact, the feeling received when traveling through the teleportation device even felt addicting to some. A few moments later, Vorden had arrived at his destination. He opened his eyes, and the first thing he noticed was the place was incredibly dark. The sky was black, and the only light source available was from the two moons outside in the distant sky. Around him were crumbled-down buildings and structures, as if at one point the place was used to live in. Vorden still had his hands held by his head, but when he opened his eyes, the pain started to go away, and his mind started to clear up. "It seems like the little one has finally calmed down," Vorden said. Any longer and he might have come out and done something. What does the matter? Rayton argued. Do you even know where we are? You jumped through that red portal. Vorden then started to look at his surroundings. It was strange to see building structures around them. Buildings were the sign of humans or an advanced civilization, and so far when discovering other planets, there had been no signs of this. When there was building work, it would usually be Dalki structure, but this was clearly not Dalki-based. Aren't the red portals meant to be unsheltered planets? This place looks like a broken shelter. I think you are forgetting something, Rayton said. While orange may mean it's in the process of being taken over and sheltered being places, red can also mean it's too dangerous to build a shelter in the first place. You have basically given us a death sentence. What do you mean? Vorden asked. Are you really being so stupid? Sure, you might have run through that portal so you didn't kill your friend, but what's the point if we die instead? The only ability we have right now is that weak level 1 Earth ability. If we run into a deadly beast, we're doomed. That wasn't the only problem. The place wasn't exactly thriving with people. Not many people had access to teleporters in the first place. Only green teleporters the public were able to use, and they were strictly monitored by the company that owned them. Meaning the only people that would be around here would be travelers. With no people around and only a beast, Vorden was stuck with his one ability, and it would only last him 24 hours. Then a thought came to Vorden's mind. Quinn. The portal was unable to send you to a pinpoint location, but it did put you in the same general area, at least within 10 miles of each other. Still, 10 miles was a great distance to cover, and with the chance of the beast being around every corner, it would be hard to find Quinn. For now, Vorden would look for a portal back to the Academy while also searching for Quinn. Somewhere on the same planet, Quinn had also arrived. His heart was beating rapidly as it was the first time he had experienced such a thing. Peter, what the hell was that? Quinn thought. Damn it, he must have pushed me through the portal. Where am I? As Quinn looked around, he could see the similar buildings around him all crumbled, torn, and fallen down. The place looked like a city had once existed, but had been left behind for years. However, there was one saving grace about the whole thing. On the planet it was currently nighttime, meaning Quinn didn't feel weak and had a better chance of surviving. However, before Quinn had even moved from the spot he was in, he spotted something from the corner of his eye. He was standing in the middle of a street, surrounded by crumbled buildings on both sides, but whatever was moving around was quick and was using the buildings as cover. Quinn tried to follow whatever it was with his eyes, but it would constantly move around until it had eventually stopped just underneath a pile of rubble from one of the buildings. In the movies, this is where the person would go check it out, Quinn thought, but there was no way he was going to do that. He was on an unknown planet and all alone, and whatever it was clear it didn't want him to see it. Quinn started to back away, making sure to keep an eye on where he last saw the figure. Then, when he was a safe enough distance away, he finally turned around. In that instant, a sound could be heard from behind. Quinn immediately turned around and could see a horrible figure running towards him. It clearly wasn't an ordinary animal, and something he had only ever seen in books and TV. It was a beast. Episode 66. First Kill. Suddenly, Quinn could hear the sounds of something scurrying towards him at an amazing speed. As he turned, the beast was now in full sight. It was the same size as a large dog, with the head of a rodent, black in color and running on all fours. He would have said it looked like a giant rat. However, its body parts were muscular around its arms, while its body remained incredibly thin, so much so that the outline of its ribs could be seen. When the creature was a few feet away, it leapt in the air, and claws appeared from the creature's two front limbs. Quinn, almost out of instinct, swiped his hand, letting out a blood swipe. The attack managed to hit the beast and sent it flying back. The attack had caused a large cut to appear on the creature's stomach, and black blood started to leak from the wound. While the beast was taking the time to recover, Quinn decided to use his Inspect skill. Name, Rataclaw. Basic tier beast. HP, ? Unlike with humans, when Quinn used the status screen, it would show their HP and blood type, but in this case, he had only received a name and the level of the beast. Seeing the tier of the beast, though, Quinn started to feel a little less frightened. He was in an unknown place, and just because the beast was small in size, didn't mean it was a low tier. However, something like the Rataclaw, even Quinn should be able to deal with it. The Rataclaw had recovered and charged straight for Quinn once again. Seeing how the Blood Swipe was effective, he waited for the beast to get close once again. Blood Swipe! But Quinn had underestimated the speed and the responsiveness of the Rataclaw. It had learned from last time what to look out for and jumped to the side, avoiding the attack. Then it dashed forward, increasing its speed, and jumped out at Quinn. Just in time, Quinn had managed to shove his gauntlet into the mouth of the beast. As its two big teeth clomped down on the gauntlet, he heard a creaking noise. Defense 1. Durability of weapon has decreased by 50%. Strength has fallen to 3. You little crap, get off me! Quinn shouted as he started swinging his arm, trying to shake the beast off, but the beast had clomped down hard, refusing to let go. With the beast stuck to his arm, it was too dangerous for him to use Blood Swipe and too close for him to perform a hammer strike. All that was left was to do it the old-fashioned way. Quinn then started to repeatedly pound the beast on its head with his other hand. With each blow, black blood would gush out of the beast. The blows were powerful and damaging to the beast, and with each strike, the grip started to loosen. If you had just stayed away, you could have lived, Quinn shouted as he continued to punch the beast, until finally its grip had come loose and it had fallen to the ground. Quinn looked like he had just come off the movie off a horror set. His arms and clothes were now completely covered in black blood, but he didn't care, for a message had appeared bearing great news. Basic tier beast Rataclaw has been defeated. 100 EXP points gained. First basic tier beast killed. Bonus EXP awarded. 200 EXP. First time killing Rataclaw. Bonus EXP awarded. 100 EXP. 880 of 800 EXP. Multiple notifications had been received at once, and everything came as quite a shock to him. Not only did he receive more EXP for killing a beast compared to fighting against a human, but he also received bonus points too. Similar to when he faced a new power level for the first time, he had gained bonus points for killing a basic tier, as well as bonus points for killing this specific beast for the first time as well. In a way, beasts were a goldmine for his system. Congratulations, you are now level 5. Race, Halfling. HP, 30 of 30. 40 of 1600 EXP. Strength, 13, 2. Agility, 15. Stamina, 12. Leveling up had given Quinn one extra stat point. Looking at his stats now, he decided to put the stat point into Strength. Strength, 14, 2. The reason for this was the skill Hammer Strike. It needed a total of 15 strength to perform. While he had the gauntlets on, they gave him an extra bonus of 3 strength, but when the Rataclaw had damaged the gauntlets, the strength dropped to 2. If his gauntlets were to be destroyed, then he would no longer be able to perform Hammer Strike correctly. So first, Quinn decided he would get his strength up to 15 before focusing on stamina and agility. But the system still had one more surprise for him. New skill unlocked, Blood Spray. Blood Spray. The user's palm must be open to perform this skill. From the user's palm, a spray of blood pellets will be realized, spreading out covering a wide range. The closer the attack is to its target, the more damage it will do. Cost, minus 5 HP. The skill reminded Quinn of a shotgun he used to watch from the old movies, where the small pellets would spread out hitting multiple targets. The problem was the cost of the skill. 5 HP was a huge amount, and even with his blood bank, Quinn would have to be careful when using it. The plus side was that it was a skill designed to hit more than one opponent. If Quinn had Layla around, he would like to test the blood spray out, but he didn't know how long he would be stuck here, so it was best to reserve his HP and as much blood as possible. Quinn then walked up to the dead beast on the ground. He had punched the creature so hard in the skull it was indented and blood was leaking everywhere. Looking at the black blood, it didn't seem appetizing at all. He wasn't drawn to it like regular human blood, and it didn't give off a sweet fragrance either. Still, there might come a time where Quinn was required to drink it, so he needed to test it out. Inspect. Rataclaw blood. If blood is consumed, is piousness to the body, minus 1 HP for every millimeter of blood consumed. It was expected. The signs were a giveaway that his body was telling him to stay away. I wonder why my body only accepts human blood. The system had been oddly specific when his body started to require blood. This made Quinn think that even the blood of animals wouldn't work, even though some were red in color just like humans. Of course, there was one person who did know the answers behind everything, and that was the blonde man in the video. The last thing he needed to do was rip or cut the body open and look for the beast core inside. It was a small crystal located in a different part of the body depending on the beast. This could be used to either create more beast weapons and armor or even be sold for credits. Both of these would be a big bonus for him. Suddenly, though, the sound of something running was heard again as Quinn looked up, the sight of 10 Rataclaws running in his direction. Although basic tier creatures were weak, it was odd for them to travel alone, and Quinn had just gotten lucky. After struggling to face just against one, he knew he had no chance against 10. All he could do was run. He ran down the empty street, not knowing where he was heading. But the Rataclaws were fast and would soon catch up. That's when Quinn spotted a building, one that was far less damaged than the others. He went inside, but the space was still too large. He then spotted a stairway to his right nearby. After quickly running up the stairway and reaching the first platform, he stopped and turned. He knew he had no choice but to fight back. The staircase was narrower than the rooms, and he had the high ground. With his palm open facing downward, he was ready. Time to test you out.
Dear listener, the upcoming episode will be today's last free episode of this story. Come back tomorrow to enjoy free episodes or get coins now to continue listening.
Episode 67, Beast Crystals. Standing on top of the platform, Quinn had a clear view of the giant rat-like creatures coming towards him. He aimed carefully, and then when they were about halfway up the stairs, he activated his skill. Blood Spray! 25 of 30 HP. His arm jerked back as the skill activated, and a strong force of blood left his hand spreading out. The 5 rats out in front were sent flying back and toppling down the stairs. However, the shot had only hit the ones in front, and the rats behind quickly climbed over their fallen comrades. Quinn decided to head further up the stairs to create more distance between him and the rats, but then he could see there was a huge problem in front of him. Part of the ceiling from the floor above had crumbled and collapsed onto the staircase, blocking his way. There was no longer any space for Quinn to go up. He turned around and the rats were just starting to ascend the second set of stairs. The rats from before were quick to make a recovery and were behind them as well. This time, Quinn held out both hands with his palm wide open. Blood Spray! The first spray of blood left his hands and knocked the rats over. Then, when the group behind them started to ascend, he cast Blood Spray again with his other hand. 20 of 30 HP. 15 of 30 HP. The rats had fallen over and were badly hurt by the attack, but knew they would soon recover. There were several small holes over their body where blood would leak from, but they just weren't deep enough to cause any serious damage. He made sure to keep his distance away from them and stayed on top of the stairs. Although Blood Spray was good at hitting multiple targets, it wasn't as strong as Blood Swipe. Only the force of knocking them back was powerful. If Quinn was to get close, he was afraid that the rats might recover and surround him, so there was only one thing he could do. He started swinging his hands out rapidly, aiming carefully at each rat. Blood Swipe! Blood Swipe! Blood Swipe! As the red claw-like lines left his hands, at the same time he could hear multiple messages ding in his head. Rataclaw has been defeated, 100 EXP, 14 of 30 HP. Rataclaw has been defeated, 100 EXP, 13 of 30 HP. The messages continued onward until eventually all of the rats had been killed. Quinn then fell to the floor on his knees, gasping for air. The continued use of blood swipes along with his new skill, Blood Spray, had tired him out. 5 of 30 HP. Blood Bank has auto-activated. 30 of 30 HP. 50 milliliters remaining in Blood Bank. 1040 of 1600 EXP. Congratulations, Blood Swipe has reached level 2. Chapter mid. After sitting down for a few minutes and recovering his stamina, Quinn was finally able to stand. He took a moment to take in all of the messages he had received. Only half of his blood bank now remained. As long as he didn't get injured, he only needed to consume 10 milliliters of blood every 2 days. This meant the remaining blood in his bank would last him a total of 10 days. He didn't know how long he would be on this planet, but he needed to be careful about using his skills. If he got into a situation where he needed to fight, he needed to use his fists and only rely on his blood skills in an emergency like in this scenario. Who knew if there was another human being on this planet? There were only two good things that had come out of the whole situation. The fact that his blood swipe skill had leveled up. There was no change in the description on how it worked, but assuming it had now leveled up, he hoped it was now stronger. If the system was like a game, then it meant the more he used the skill, the quicker it would level up. The only thing Quinn was unsure about was whether or not using the blood swipe in the game had helped it level up quicker. There was no way for him to tell, as there was no experience bar for his skills. The second good thing that had come out of this was the EXP he had gained. To gain the same amount of experience points as he had just gained at this moment, he would have had to play the game for days. Quinn then walked up to the dead beasts on the floor. Before, when he had killed the first Rataclaw, he didn't have time to extract the beast crystal from its body, but inside the building, it seemed like he was safe from other creatures. Using the tip of his gauntlets, he tore open the beasts. He searched around inside the chest, looking for a glowing crystal. Usually, someone doing this for the first time, it would affect them. Maybe they would have even thrown up a few times, searching around inside the organs of the beast. But for some reason, Quinn felt like he was unaffected, and it didn't bother him at all. He couldn't help but think ever since he had become a halfling, his view on what was normal and what wasn't was changing. After searching around for a while, Quinn finally found it. It was a small, round crystal ball with tiny little bumps all over, and around the same size as an adult's fist. Basic tier beast crystal obtained. Would you like to store it in your inventory? Then another message appeared. Inventory? Quinn thought. You mean I had one this whole time? Quinn selected the yes option, and suddenly the crystal in his hand slowly started to vanish away, and finally it had completely disappeared. He then opened up his status screen, and now there was a tab for inventory. As he selected the tab, he could see the single beast crystal stored inside. I wonder if I can put anything else in there. Quinn then tried using his mind to store his gauntlets into the inventory. If he could store weapons and other things, it would be really handy for future trips. He tried and tried, but nothing appeared from the system. Whenever he wanted to do something with the system in the past, all he had to do was think about it, and it would work. But even taking off the gauntlets and touching them, thinking about the inventory while wearing them, nothing seemed to work. Although he was able to make the crystal he had obtained appear into his hand and back into the inventory at will. Quinn then went to extract the crystals from the remaining 9 rats. Each time he did it, he found it easier than the last to locate it inside the body, and every time he held a crystal in his hand, the system message would appear. Basic tier beast crystal 10. He had collected all 10 and couldn't help but feel pleased with himself. The beast crystals could be used to turn into beast weapons or beast armor, but looking at the rat-like creature, Quinn had no idea what it could be used for. Every beast crystal, depending what beast it had come from, had a different use, and you could try to figure it out from what the beast was like. For example, if a beast crystal was obtained from a large turtle-like creature, then it would likely be a defensive item that could be crafted. Maybe it could be turned into a shield or even a good piece of chest armor. But regardless, even if the item created Quinn had no use for, the least he could do was sell the basic tier beast crystals. Each crystal sold would sell for a total of 10 credits, which meant he could either use the money to purchase beast gear himself, or he could use it to spend more time in the game. After tinkering around in his system and his stamina fully recovered, Quinn decided to try to climb up to the roof of the building. Even though the building he was in was safe, he was on a strict time scale and needed to find the portal back fast. He walked around and looked for any cracks and gaps he could see in the stairs. Eventually, after making a few detours, he had reached the top of the building. The building was about 3 stories high and wasn't the biggest, but at least now he had a better view of where he was. As he looked around, all he could see were buildings that resembled human structures. That's when he spotted something. One of the buildings, without a doubt, had the same crest as the school he attended. So this really is a human shelter, but then why is it all ruined and destroyed? The building was large in size and square-like, but only 2 stories high. Out of all the buildings around, it was in better shape than all the others. Quinn had recognized the building as they had one in the city he was currently in. It was the military storage room. It was where they kept all their high-end equipment, ability books, skill books, and beast weapons. There's a good chance the portal might be located in there? Quinn then started to smile. Even if there isn't, I can't waste this opportunity.
Dear listener, now playing the next audio series. Dear listener, the upcoming episode will be today's last free episode of this story. Come back tomorrow to enjoy free episodes or get coins now to continue listening.
Episode 68, Guilty People Run. Unknown to the students at the school, there was currently chaos going on between the upper staff. Faye, one of the sergeants of the school, was walking down the hallway at incredible speed. Even though she was only walking, she was causing gusts of wind to hit the students as she walked past them. Using her ability, even her walking speed was faster than most people's top running speed. Eventually, she had arrived at her destination. A single wooden door in the first-year building had a sign out front saying the words General on it. "May I come in, sir?" Faye said in a loud, demanding voice. "Sure," Nathan replied. Faye barged the door open and quickly zoomed to Nathan's desk. The wind that came along with her caused papers to be flown and scattered all over the room. "Hey, I was nearly done with that," Nathan shouted. As head of the first years, he was a busy person. He would normally be in charge of looking over the new students arriving and doing research into each of their backgrounds. It was important for the school to know who belonged to which family, as they needed to keep an eye on those with a more powerful background. "The portals have been used," Faye shouted. 2 students seem to have been registered to have gone through them." Nathan started to pick up the papers that were scattered around the room one by one. "Is that all? Well, why don't you just go and get them back?" "I'm afraid it's because they have gone through a red portal, sir." Nathan then dropped all the piles of paper he had picked up from the floor. "What? How did this happen? Weren't there meant to be guards stationed at the portal? Apparently there was a scheduling conflict. When the guards changed shifts, their replacements never arrived." Nathan then went to sit back in his chair as he struggled to think what to do. "Stupid parents. This is why I said we should have cameras stationed in the school, but it was hard enough to allow them to get those trackers put on them." The original families had a big say in what went on and what didn't. Although it was compulsory for every person to go to military school for 2 years at the age of 16, the originals were powerful people in the outside world. During the war, 4 big families emerged from it. Each power is as great as each other and equal to the military. The structure of the world has changed. Money hardly meant anything anymore, and a new system was put in place: the credit system. Those who were strong and able to contribute to the world earned credits. An example of this would be those who could kill high-level beasts and obtain their crystals to make weapons, while the others too weak to complete a task such as this were continued to be treated as trash and a waste of space. Of course, the families hated the idea of the military spying on their children, afraid that they might try to learn their secrets. "Do we know which students have gone through the portal?" Nathan asked as he picked up his cup of coffee and started to sip it. "The first one is the student by the name of Quinn Talon." Hearing this name meant nothing to him. He couldn't remember it, so most likely it wasn't anyone important in the school. "And the second one is Vorden Blade." At that moment, Nathan spat out his coffee all over the table. "Him again?" After the incident with the second years, Nathan decided to look into Vorden's family background a bit more, and if they were to find out, this would be bad news. "Make sure his family don't learn anything. We have to keep this a secret for as long as we can." The next day, morning classes had started. Today was the day of the group assessment, and the first-year students would be heading off to their first portal outing. As class had started for the day, Layla noticed that Vorden and Quinn weren't in their seats. However, Peter was in his, and he had his head face down looking at the ground. "Hey, Peter, do you know where Vorden and Quinn are today?" she asked. Peter had completely ignored her. "Hey, Peter," she said as she placed her hand on his shoulder. All she could feel was Peter's body shaking slightly. "I didn't do anything," Peter snapped. "Huh? What?" Layla said, confused. "I was asking if you knew where Quinn and Vorden were. Did they not come back to the dorm room yesterday?" "Oh, sorry. Yeah, they were there when I went back," Peter said with his voice all shaky. "I don't know why they haven't come to class this morning." Layla noticed that Peter was sweating like crazy. It was normal for Peter to act a little strange, but he was acting extra unusual today. She decided that it was most likely nothing for her to worry about and sat in her seat as usual. They wouldn't miss today. We're meant to go out portal hunting as a team. Just then, Del had entered the room. He didn't have his usual cheery face on, and instead had a bland, serious look. "I'm afraid that I have to inform you all that today's portal outing has been cancelled for now." Upon hearing the news, the students groaned and complained. "What? But I wanted to test out my new beast weapon." "Yeah, I was hoping to maybe kill a beast as well." "Quiet down," Del said loudly. "This isn't permanent, but at the moment the school staff are busy with another matter, and until they are free, we will be unable to go on the outing." A single student then raised his hand in the center of the class. As Del looked at the student, he sighed. "Yes. What matter are they dealing with?" "Now, if I could tell you that, I would have told you, wouldn't I?" The class then continued as normal. A few of the students were still annoyed, but then a big question was on everyone's mind. What happened, and why was it suddenly canceled? Layla, on the other hand, was more concerned where Vorden and Quinn were. Why hadn't the teacher said anything about them not attending class? If they were injured in a fight last night, then the guards should have picked them up and taken them to the nurse's office. There was also a strict curfew for them, and no one skipped class, yet Del hadn't mentioned a single thing about them. As class ended, the students continued to speak, and it turned out that Layla wasn't the only one who was concerned about where Vorden and Quinn went. Aaron had then come over to where Layla was. "Any idea about the other two?" Aaron said bluntly. "No, I have no idea. Do you want to go look for them with me?" Layla asked nicely. The two of them didn't know each other well, and their interactions with each other so far had been short. It actually surprised Layla that Aaron had come over to her in the first place. "No thanks," Aaron replied. "Now that the portal training has been delayed, I am in no rush to find them. But I came over to tell you some news I heard some students talking about." Layla leaned in to listen carefully. "Yesterday, while I was walking by two students, they overheard the sergeant shouting at the general, something about two students going into the portals. My guess is that's the reason why this whole thing has been delayed in the first place." Layla then stood up from her seat and grabbed Aaron by the shoulders. "Wait, what did you say?" Aaron had moved her head slightly back. She was startled and confused by Layla's actions and felt a little uncomfortable. "Don't you see? Vorden and Quinn have to be the missing students. No wonder Del didn't say anything about them." Then suddenly it felt like she was being handed pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, one by one. But there was still one missing piece, and she knew exactly the person who could give her the last piece. As she turned her head, she looked Peter dead in the eye. Peter felt like Layla was staring into his soul. This whole time he had been worried. What if someone had seen him leave the portal room? What if the other first years reported it was him? He hardly had any sleep last night and couldn't concentrate on anything. Then when Layla had spoken to him in the morning, he slipped up. He was trying so hard to act natural, it had the opposite effect. And now the look in Layla's eyes told him she had figured out something. As soon as Layla took a step forward, Peter got out of his seat and ran for it. "Aaron, we have to get Peter. He knows something." "What makes you think that?" Aaron asked. "A person who isn't guilty doesn't run away for no reason."
Dear listener, now playing the next audio series.
I've always hated my father.
What are you doing, Daddy?
He steals, he lies, he yells.
Jesus, Norton, you're not supposed to be here.
And he cheated on my mother, relentlessly. He didn't even care that she was dying of cancer. 20 minutes ago, she had a doctor's appointment where she was given the news. News that she was dying, and soon.
Henry?
Hey, Yvette, slow your roll. This isn't what it looks like.
Mommy, do you want to hear me sing? Do, re, mi, fa.
Laura? Go inside. Who's she, Henry?
Just calm down, Yvette.
Should I just leave, babe?
The cause of all of this, Wendy.
Answer me. Answer me! On the day that I find out I have less than a year to live.
God, you would bring the cancer into all this.
Cancer? Ooh.
Mommy, Daddy, look at me.
I'm leaving you, Henry. I don't want our daughter growing up around you.
Fine by me. You keep playing that victim card, sweetie. Want to grab lunch? I just became available.
Are you okay, Mommy?
Okay. As long as we have each other, we'll always be okay.
Little did she know, we wouldn't always have each other.
Yvette? Bet! Help! Someone! Help!
What had happened to my mother?
Stay with me, Yvette.
Had someone done this to her?
She's in a coma, Bertha. It's not looking good. Cancer has made her extremely weak.
What can we do?
Mommy, I'm hungry. Is Mommy sleeping?
Hey, why don't we go and make some cookies? Yeah?
Mommy, wake up!
Nora,
Mommy!
your mommy's very sick.
She's not going to wake up.
Your mommy, as you know her, she's gone.
And you just have to accept that.
10 years later, and Mom still hadn't woken up. But I never gave up hope, even though my dad wasted no time moving on. Wendy moved in and brought her evil daughter, Angela. They already replaced my mother. Their next target, me.
You've been up here all morning. Can I get you something to eat?
No thanks, B. I'm not hungry.
You haven't had much of an appetite these days.
Yeah, well, according to my father, I could afford to miss a meal here and there.
I think I've lost my appetite, too.
They're disgusting. Every day I have to hear my dad have sex with that. You know what? I'm gonna be late for school. See you later, Mom.
Maybe your secret crush will talk to you today.
LOL, good one. What I wanted for my birthday more than anything was for my mom to wake up.